My NBC News colleague Antonia Hilton is on the ground in North Carolina. Also with us is Dawn Baumgartner-Vaughn, State Capitol Bureau Chief at the Raleigh News and Observer, and Dasha Burns, who covers the Trump campaign for NBC News. Thanks to all of you for starting us off. Dasha, let me start with you. Donald Trump set to campaign in Wilmington, North Carolina tomorrow. His sources are telling us, I know you've been working your sources, that his allies are calling on him to rescind his endorsement of Robinson. So far, he is digging in, saying he's not going to do that. What more do you know?
Yeah, Kristen, that's exactly right. It's his allies. It's people within his campaign. Sources telling us that these conversations are ongoing. One source who's been involved in the discussion telling me that Trump has been going back and forth on this. But it's true. As of now, he has not gotten on board with pulling that endorsement. There's a possibility that he does a sort of half step here where he doesn't necessarily pull the endorsement, but disavows the actions and what we have now all seen in that explosive report. You've also got members of the North Carolina senators from North Carolina, Senator Ted Budd, Senator Tom Tillis, saying that they want him to pull that endorsement, according to our sources. We did just get a comment from Senator Budd here. He says that the comments reported in the article are disgusting. Mark Robinson says they're not from him. He needs to prove that to the voters. We're also hearing that RNC Chairman Michael Whatley is in contact with the former president, also urging him to pull his endorsement. Whatley is, of course, from North Carolina. So a lot of pressure here. This is a tough one for the former president, given the comments that you just played earlier there. He did give a full-throated endorsement to Robinson, and the Democrats are already seizing on that, Kristen.
They sure are, and it's just fascinating. You read the statement from Budd there where he says you've got to prove it. So challenging and complicated to do, particularly in this era, and given all of the evidence that came to bear in that initial reporting. Dasha, don't go anywhere. I'm going to come back to you for a couple more questions. But Antonia, let me go to you now on the ground in North Carolina. So the deadline has officially passed for him to drop out of the race. You have been talking to people there, getting the real-time reaction. What are they telling you, Antonia?
Yeah, Kristen, I've been talking with voters, but also with political operatives here at the state level, reacting to this in real time. You know, throughout the day yesterday, people on all sides were bracing for this. The rumor had spread about what might be in this report. And so preparations were already underway, and that effort to try to get Robinson to step aside has been the talk of the town here, and is now stretching into its second day. So Republicans are kind of walking this fine line, as Dasha just spelled out, of sort of this uncertainty around how to disavow the comments, but potentially keep Robinson in the fold. The major concern being that Robinson could be seen as a drag on the entire Republican ticket. And then the Democrats, in many ways, kind of gleeful about this, celebrating, already out with that digital ad that you showed. But the voters here, many of them describe this to me as really a sad sign of the times. Take a listen to some of the conversations I've had.
Stunning to me that you would then purport to espouse conservative Christian values, because it seems to be completely hypocritical.
We really feel conflicted because we feel both parties are moving to the extremes. Many Republicans have their mind made up, and I'm not sure they're going to change.
I spent some time talking to a Republican voter here, too, who told me that, look, you know, he likes Robinson's policies. This is all alleged, and it really didn't make that much of a difference to him. And so I think you may see that some Republicans stay very firmly on Robinson's side here, no matter what the rest of the GOP delegation does here. Because they've missed that deadline, they say they're standing by their guy, Kristen.
Well, and it comes as Democrats are launching a messaging campaign, a push to really link Trump to Robinson. Talk a little bit about the strategy inside the Harris campaign now.
Oh, yeah. Expect to see the clip of former President Trump tying or comparing Robinson to MLK. here locally and nationally a lot over the next coming days and weeks. You're going to see images of them appearing together, photographs of people at events with him already. In some cases, some of the state level Republicans here have started deleting images of themselves at events with Robinson. And I spoke to one of the Democratic Party chairs here, the second vice chair, Dr. Kimberly Hardy, today, and she told me that that's really part of the strategy for the entire Democratic ticket now.
All right. Well, Antonia Hilton with The View and some great interviews on the ground there in North Carolina. Thank you so much, Antonia. It's always great to see you and get your great reporting. Let me turn now to Dawn. Dawn, look, Robinson is a sitting elected official. So I think a lot of people are wondering, why is this just coming to light now? Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of this? And again, broader context here, not his first controversial comment.
Exactly. So he's the incumbent lieutenant governor. He did not hold political office until running for lieutenant governor. There was a crowded primary, and he was kind of a surprise when he won that Republican primary and becoming lieutenant governor. He's known for this. He became famous he already had a social media following of these Facebook selfie videos and said all kinds of controversial things, including about women and abortion. And then he had a viral speech at a city council meeting that was pro gun rights. And he's said a lot of insulting comments about LGBTQ plus people in the past. So this kind of goes along. It's a much worse. It's, beyond the pale, a lot of the things there. And of course, he, called Martin Luther King, a series of racial slurs. So it's a different level of it. And even though he's denying it, the evidence that CNN laid out is it's enough that I think a lot of people believe it. And Republicans don't want to go on record right now and say anything about him, because then they're connected to him, and they don't want to be connected to him at all right now, because he's going to make them lose.
Well, so which takes me to my next question. Let's talk about former President Donald Trump. Real jitters inside Trump world that he could be dragged down by this, as you are saying. Talk a little bit about that link between Trump and Robinson. I mean, he helped Robinson become who he is today. He has endorsed him as well.
Exactly, for sure. I mean, they're together. The Republican state treasurer, Del Folwell, is an outspoken critic of Robinson. He lost to Robinson in the primary. He told me yesterday that this is just what, everybody should already know, that he called it fleecing, that Robinson is fleecing taxpayers, fleecing donors, and that as far as leaving the race, it would, of course, the deadline for that is passed now, but it would be up to Trump, who endorsed him, helped him rise to fame. And Whatley, as you mentioned, is from North Carolina. So it's if Trump gives the message when he's here in Wilmington tomorrow that he doesn't like Robinson anymore, that will actually kind of free up a lot of Republicans who at this point are pretty, or they're mad too, but afraid to say anything about it publicly because they're worried about their base voters.
Let's talk big picture about North Carolina politics. It is a unique state. It is known for having voted for a president and governor of different parties in 8 of the past 15 presidential elections, Dawn. So do you think this is going to fundamentally change how voters approach how they're going to vote in November, or is ticket splitting just a part of what happens in North Carolina?
But I've been looking even in the primary that the state could go for Trump and then also Josh Stein, the Democratic Attorney General, that's Robinson's opponent. And some of it is the personality. Robinson has never really talked much about policy at all until just very recently. And, I've met people who are supporters of Obama and Hillary Clinton and Trump. And so we're the state of Madison Cawthorn and John Edwards. There's plenty of scandals in the past here, but Robinson was already down in the polls before this. And a lot of that had to do with Republican women voters who didn't like the kind of comments he made about abortion, about women in general, just about anybody, just kind of the series of insults that he just kind of says now, said in the past. And that's a real turnoff to a lot of voters, no matter what party you are.
It's just fascinating to have your perspective, Dawn, Bob Gartner, Vaughn. We really appreciate your inside look and your great reporting. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Dasha, let me go back to you now. This, of course, not the first time that Trump has endorsed a candidate who's been embroiled in scandal. You think about Roy Moore, you think about Herschel Walker, who ran for Senate in Georgia. What is Trump world saying about this? Are they downplaying this pick within that broader context? How are they explaining it?
I mean, look, Kristen, thanks to the great reporting of our colleagues, including yourself, we know that the former president is resistant and has been in the past. Those other candidates you mentioned are an example of letting scandal sway his decision or letting scandal make him change his endorsement. He feels like, you know, even if it might be a smart decision to back away from Robinson, that it could potentially make him look weak or anger some folks in the base, according to the sources that we've been talking to. And it would be a first for the former president to pull an endorsement based on this kind of bombshell report. Even as striking as this is, it seems like he's resistant to it. And the Trump campaign has put out a statement, but not mentioning Robinson directly. They just said that North Carolina is important to them to win the White House. And we have not yet heard from the former president directly on this. He will be, though, as we said earlier in the show, here in Wilmington for a rally tomorrow. Robinson will not be in attendance. We'll see, though, if he makes any sort of statement there, Kristen.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating to see what, if anything, former President Donald Trump has to say about this latest twist in the gubernatorial race. Dasha Burns, thank you so much. Great to see you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.